Yo, welcome to Simply Bitcoin. Did Micheal Saylor change his mind? Well, we're going to talk about that today. There was a viral video that went around where Micheal Saylor joined a great content creator. Her name is Madison Ridey, and she asked him a question regarding the dangers, the potential dangers of the centralization of the custody of Bitcoin. And what's really interesting to me is the change in answers. And we have all the receipts for you guys. So we have the clip lined up. We're going to play it and then we're going to talk about it. Let's check it out. Here we go.
More Bitcoins held with these third-party custodians. What risk does that pose, having greater supply held by fewer large institutions? Does that increase the risk of seizure and confiscation like we've seen with gold? And is that not exactly what Bitcoiners don't want to happen?
No, I think it's the opposite. I think that when the Bitcoin is held by a bunch of crypto anarchists who aren't regulated entities, who don't acknowledge government or don't acknowledge taxes or don't acknowledge reporting requirements, that increases the risk of seizure. You have an OG crypto community that's very hardcore about it, but if you look at where all the money is, 99.9% of the money is actually in the traditional economy.
If you consider the Great Depression, I mean, people thought that their gold was safe in banks until the Executive Order of 1933. So we're not entirely safe. I mean, I know that's kind of a wild thing to suggest may happen again, but history does repeat itself. So people's Bitcoin wouldn't be entirely safe. It's
people say that, but mostly it's paranoid crypto anarchists that say that. Okay? Because it's a myth and a trope that goes on over and over again. But first of all, he didn't really seize the gold. People voluntarily turned in the gold. They didn't go and kick in everybody's door, arrest them, shoot them, and take their gold. That never happened. Is the United States on the Bitcoin standard?
Maybe we will be soon.
But the point really is we're not. Right? It's totally not a reasonable comparison. You know, people have these inflammatory tropes or inflammatory memes that they use. And it's like, I say that because I want you to give me your money. Okay? Like, if you don't trust the bank, then you'll buy my hardware wallet. If you don't trust this government, you'll move to my country and you'll buy a passport from me. That's the kind of fear mongering to get you to give me your money, right? And I use it to sell you a gun, to sell you a hardware wallet, to sell you an account, to sell you a financial advisor, to sell you an insurance policy, to sell you fill in the blank.
Okay. All right. So, first of all, I want to say this about Saylor. I'm a huge Saylor fan. I think he's contributed so much to the industry. But it's a little interesting because he was actually saying, in this particular topic, he was actually saying something very different on the Patrick Bet Davis podcast. Let's check it out.
Churchill seized the gold. Roosevelt seized the gold. If you'd lived in Germany, you would have had your gold seized multiple times. In Japan, they lost it 2 or 3 times. In Russia, count the number of times. So there's nowhere on earth where you could have kept your gold. Churchill seized.
I mean, that's in stark contrast to what he's saying, right? He was saying these are paranoid Bitcoiners. Here's a video of him about a couple years ago. He's talking about self-custody. Very, very different perspective. Let's check it out.
Of something you can own $100 million of, where you can take personal custody of it, and where you can actually move it anywhere on earth, and where even if I hold a gun to your head, I can't take it from you. And the only thing we've ever figured out that you can do that with is Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin is like, it keeps everybody honest. The optionality to do this means that all you got to do is find one bank in Singapore that'll treat you better than the bank in New York or London or Tokyo, and then you can move it in a half an hour for $5. And what happens next? The bank in New York thinks, well, I guess we can't screw these guys over because they'll just move it to Singapore. And the guys in California say, well, I can't just tax all the Bitcoin in California. It'll move to Wyoming. It'll move to Singapore. It'll move to Malta. And at the end of the day, you can tell everybody to go fuck themselves. You can put it in your head, memorize the freaking key, right? And it's here. And then, the classic Bitcoiner response is, oh, yeah, my Bitcoin, I lost it in a boating accident. You ever heard that phrase? It's kind of a trope, but what it means is at the end of the day, if you push me too far, I lost it. It's gone. Sorry.
That's it. You're
Tax that.
So again, it radically different perspectives here. I radically different. He's bringing up examples of gold seizures in the past. He's bringing up the power of self-custody. And then he goes on this recent podcast and he's downplaying the importance of self-custody. He's basically making the case that only paranoid Bitcoiners should want self-custody. Now, a lot of people have thoughts about this, and I want to get them before I share my thoughts about this recent Saylor podcast. Here's Max Keiser. Max Keiser's a legend. My roadmap for Bitcoin differs from Saylor. I believe money existed before the state. Bitcoin separates money from state. Bitcoin ends the state. Saylor's roadmap is very provincial, US-centered, and reactionary. It fails to consider the imminent and much-needed collapse of central banking and fiat money. In El Salvador, we are not so naive. We understand a Bitcoin renaissance is upon us, and El Salvador is leading the way. Saylor is trying to fix an irreparable and more immoral broken system. We are building a new system, a new economy, on top of Bitcoin. Come here and you'll see what I mean. Here is Jameson Lopp. Bitcoin self-custody isn't just about being a paranoid mountain man. There are many long-term negative ramifications to convincing people to trust third parties. 1. Centralizing coins into a few hands increases systemic risk of loss and seizure. 2. Bitcoin get disenfranchised from participating in governance activities like running nodes or trading forks. 3. Ossification arguments are strengthened because institutions don't care about more advanced cryptographic features. 4. Permissionless scaling gets deprioritized because we can just scale via trusted third-party IOUs. Self-custody is not merely important to individual Bitcoin holders. It's important to the continued strengthening and improvement of the entire network. Moving on, Jameson Lopp once again says, the folks who are focused on TradFi adoption of Bitcoin don't care about improving the protocol and scaling the network because they don't care about self-custody. The next battle for the future of Bitcoin is brewing. Completely agree. Anyways, here is NVK. He says the problem that Saylor and the content creator whose clip we posted, her name again is Madison Ridey. You can find the entire interview on her YouTube channel, so go definitely check it out. Missed here is not 6102. He is correct on that. The issue is large holder choosing which fork to follow. Say Coinbase held 25% of the supply and decided to follow a 20 gigabyte block fork, that would pose a huge problem. Could make strategy go to zero in a way that TradFi shorter or governments capture never could. Here's Jack Mallers reacting to all this. Calling self-custody crypto anarchism oversimplifies what Bitcoin accomplishes. It's about freedom of speech, property rights, and protecting your right to own what's yours. We must not dismiss it because freedom isn't promised. It must be fought for, and protected. As I said at the end of the clip, I love Saylor. He's a friend. This is the only free market in the world being free. In any free market, especially something as revolutionary as Bitcoin, people are going to have different views. That's not just normal, it's necessary. It's all love from me. My goal is simply to defend the principles that I believe make Bitcoin powerful. Freedom and the ability for anyone to engage with it however they see fit. And I echo what Jack Mallers says. I'm a huge fan of Micheal Saylor and forever grateful for what he's done for our movement and for the Bitcoin movement overall. I think he is fundamentally wrong on self-custody, though. I think self-custody is the revolution. Self-custody is what is going to fundamentally, radically change the world into a much better world, a world where everyone has the opportunity to get ahead. If history has shown time and time again, if the state and if the government has the ability to confiscate everyone's wealth in order to bail themselves out, they will do it. Do you think that 6 months or a year before the 6102 order, in a country like the United States, with the constitutional protections that it has, do you think people envisioned that here? No. There was a bunch of lawsuits after it happened, specifically citing the Constitution. And remember, when FDR did this, he initially did it with an executive order. The legislation through Congress came after the fact. And again, at that time, the Democrats had a supermajority in Congress and also the Supreme Court. So, like, again, you can say that, you can make a very strong argument that FDR was as close as the U.S. would ever get to a dictator of some sorts. He was one of the only American presidents that ran for 3 terms, even though that, they made that part of they ratified that into an amendment after the fact. But, it was like long-standing culture in American history since George Washington that presidents would only run for 2 terms because the United States didn't want to have a king, right? So again, it was different times. There was the Great Depression that happened, right? The world wars were mixed in there as well. But not learning from the past and expecting things not to repeat in a way, maybe it doesn't repeat exactly, but rhyming, I think, is a bit naive. So I'm sticking to what we advocate for on Simply Bitcoin. Spot Bitcoin and put that Bitcoin into self-custody in your cold storage Bitcoin wallet. Even if you're an institution or a company, do it. Do it. Don't trust a third party, especially now that we have a technology where you don't have to anymore. With gold, you needed to. With stocks, you needed to. With Bitcoin, you don't need to. So I understand why he's saying that. I get why he's saying that. No one is better than their incentives, and I understand Micheal Saylor's incentives. However, I disagree with him. And what Jack Mallers says, it comes from a place of love. This is a free market. Everyone has different opinions. But make no mistake, self-custody is the revolution. Self-custody is what is going to free you. And self-custody isn't just for a paranoid few. Self-custody, I believe that if enough of the world's population takes their wealth into self-custody, it will dramatically change the world for the better. Anyways, that's my 2 sats. Opti, what's your take on this? It was a bit surprising. I'm not going to lie. When I initially heard that, I was a little bit disappointed, but at the same time, I get where Saylor's coming from. Saylor's trying to sell his stock, right? Saylor is trying to get people to buy the ETFs. I understand that. That's traditional finance. But at the same time, like, there's nothing like spot Bitcoin and cold storage. You can't replace that, right? So, Opti, what's your take?
Yeah, well, obviously, fundamentally, just on the surface, I do disagree. I mean, I would when this news came out, I pretty much just tweeted like only the paranoid survive, obviously kind of trolling it. And I think it's important to be paranoid and keep your head on a swivel. But like, if you just kind of take his words and you kind of realize the game he's playing, now Saylor does have a huge target on his back. We know that some of his comments in podcasts were used against him in court. And so this is probably why he's trying to shift his rhetoric a little bit and play the game a little differently than us, average retail, everyday Bitcoiners that don't have billions of dollars in the system. But when you really kind of think about what he said in that clip in particular, I think he does kind of have a point. And this is not saying like self-custody is bad. I mean, he didn't really even say that in particular, but what he said is essentially like, all the money coming from TradFi isn't going to go into self-custody. And I think anyone that isn't naive knows that that's the case. These billionaires out here, or even, wealthy people, they don't like to hold their assets. And of course, they want some trusted third parties, though us Bitcoiners do always reference the classic article by Nick Szabo of, trusted third parties are security holes. And so this is why we are so skeptical when we hear things like this, especially coming from someone that is as big as Saylor saying like, oh, you don't need to take Bitcoin into self-custody. That makes you a, paranoid crypto anarchist or whatever the phrasing was. And so obviously here, I completely disagree. I think it's very important that people do take Bitcoin into custody. I think that is probably the most important aspect of this, is that people hold their own Bitcoin, because we know, like, what was that Lop quote where you're saying like the biggest threat necessarily is not just a 6102 order. It's more that Bitcoin does get centralized. And we know, especially since we've been covering choke point 2.0 the whole year, that if they can centralize the money, then it makes it that much easier for them to cut off the on and off ramps of Bitcoin. And I think this is kind of the battle that we've been seeing and we're seeing play out in real time, is that now, politics and Wall Street is on our door, and they are doing, I mean, not necessarily saying that Saylor is a part of this, but there is a concerted effort to kind of centralize Bitcoin and make it not become the digital money or digital currency that we all believe it will be, especially with the rhetoric of, oh, it's just a digital asset, it's just a store of value. Whereas we fundamentally think it's different. We think it's the best money in the world because it's permissionless, because it's censorship resistant, and because you can take it into custody. And so, on those fronts, obviously, I think self-custody is super important. But talking on the 6102 part, I did see a really good note from Lynn Alden, and I want to pull it up right now. So reading kind of what Lynn Alden said, she's going here. This is again on Primal. She goes 101 on how gold was confiscated. You had to turn it in for dollars by a deadline prior to dollar devaluation, and there were massive prison consequences for not turning it in. But little resources in terms of investigating who didn't turn it in. That would be expensive. So it was fear-based, focusing on illegality and tail risk on edge cases more than enforcement on average. Institutions had to comply immediately, which is interesting considering what he said in that clip, since it's all visible. So the government broke liquidity in the domestic gold market, which was enough for their purposes. Gold became a hard-to-trade illegal relic for those that held it. If a small family hodled some extra bars for 40 years until it became legal again, then they did okay. But can the government track Bitcoin in the 2020s better or worse than gold in 1930s for enforcement purposes? That's the right question. And don't just think of confiscation. Think of 70% selective taxes and things like that, far more within the current rule of law. That's the sophisticated approach. Don't take it, selectively tax it by a lot. Those are the politics to push against from a Bitcoin perspective. And we've been seeing this kind of narrative also get pushed recently, of course, in Italy about the, raising the capital gains tax on Bitcoin. And, even Elizabeth Warren with the anti-crypto army that she was building and some of the rhetoric that she was saying. And of course, let's not forget, is it a coincidence that right after the ECB articles or reports were dropped that we get this clip? So kind of backtracking on some of those comments that Saylor's made in the past. And then, of course, a lot of the more cynical Bitcoiners on Twitter are saying like he used the plebs and the Bitcoin rhetoric to build a huge platform, and now he's kind of rolling it back. Of course, we've constantly seen from Saylor that he is, for better or worse, a dollar maxi. He thinks that the dollar and Bitcoin will survive together. A lot of us Bitcoiners kind of have a different take, that Bitcoin will win eventually and all roads lead to Bitcoin. So it is a very interesting and kind of like head scratching take here. And of course, not trying to mind read here because I don't really know what's going on in Saylor's mind here. It does seem like he is trying to protect his neck now that there is, the forces that be kind of attacking Bitcoin.
Dude.
What do you got here?
Dude, not your keys, not your coins.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and also, let's not forget that he is also working towards building a Bitcoin bank. So
this is, what this is, guys. Look, Elon was super pro Bitcoin, and Tesla was accepting Bitcoin on their website. And then all of a sudden, Elon did a 180 and he never brought up Bitcoin again. So I think that if you have a public company in the United States and you are prone to government regulatory pressure, I think in a way you have tremendous amount of pressure not to talk about something that could potentially threaten the US dollar and specifically US sanctioned policy. That's my two sats. I think this is what's going on here. And this is what I was talking about when it comes down to incentives. And no one's better than their incentives. I think Saylor knows the benefits of self custody, but now his incentives aren't necessarily aligned with saying, listen, you should take self custody because again, it's as someone saying in the comment, MicroStrategy is very Wall Street dependent. Something to keep in mind, right? So again, I don't blame him. This is a free market. Everyone is entitled to their opinions. I personally love Saylor, love what he's done. I've had great interactions with him and experiences with him in person. So, I'm not trying to, shit on his opinion or anything. Everyone's entitled to it. And that's what makes Bitcoin beautiful, right? Everyone has different approaches to it after all. So anyways, guys, let's jump straight into the show. But before we do that, I do want to give an extremely special shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor. Of course, I'm talking about the best place to buy your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. And of course, I'm talking about bitcoinwell.com. Bitcoinwell.com is a publicly traded company coming out of Canada that recently expanded to all 50 US states. It's one of the only Bitcoin-only on-ramps that is completely non-custodial, empowering sovereign ownership with free, automatic self-custody. Meaning, when you buy Bitcoin on BitcoinWell, it goes straight after the funds clear, it goes straight to your Bitcoin wallet address. It doesn't even give you the option to leave the money on the exchange, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state. Head over to bitcoinwell.com today to get started. And again, also, every time you buy Bitcoin on BitcoinWell, you earn Bitcoin Well points. And you could redeem those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest. Get your Lightning wallets ready. First person to scan the QR code has won 500 sats. Every time you toss a coin into the Bitcoin Wishing Well, you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million sats. If you use promo code SimplyBTC, again, SimplyBTC, to sign up to bitcoinwell.com today, you get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin Wishing Well absolutely free. All right, everybody, let's start the show. Let's get into the numbers. We have a ton to talk about today. Let's check it out. All right, everybody, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Stampseed. Usually when you buy yourself a hardware wallet, it comes with a piece of paper, and you're meant to write down your seed words on that piece of paper. Problem is that paper is prone to water damage, fire damage, your dog could eat it. That's not the right way to store your generational wealth, which is why here at Simply Bitcoin, we recommend the Stampseed. The Stampseed is a titanium seed phrase storage kit. It comes with everything you need to literally proof of work, stamp your seed words into a plate of titanium. It comes with the hammer. It comes with the letter stamping tools. It comes with the anvil. So instead of writing down your seed words on a feeble piece of paper, you can literally stamp your seed letter by letter into a plate of titanium, which is resistant to fire, water. Your dog's probably not going to want to eat it. This is the proper way to store your generational wealth. Use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com website. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $65,890. Sats per dollar, 1,518. Block height, 867,029. Realized monetary inflation, 1.28%. Market cap, 1.3 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 6.79%. Money supply, 19,771,749 BTC. Percentage issued, 94.15%. in the grand scheme of things are just getting started. Anyways, interesting observation from Alex Thorne. Alex Thorne is the head of research at Galaxy. Let's check it out. When you adjust for inflation, the Bitcoin bull market hasn't even started yet. That's a really good point. Here is the data itself. November 21st, Bitcoin all-time high. It's at 67,734. But if you adjust for inflation, the March 2024 BTC all-time high is 73 which was 73,157. But if you adjust for inflation, it's actually $60,738 in terms of purchasing power. What about the October 21st, 2024 BTC? The nominal was 67,419. If you adjust for inflation, that's actually the equivalent of 55,325 worth of purchasing power. And again, BTC to USD, to break prior all-time high, it would actually require a $77,000 all-time high to break the previous all-time high if you adjust for inflation. So it's quite interesting. And it just shows you the loss of purchasing power. Anyways, I have a clip for you guys of potentially the future president of the United States. Here's Donald Trump. And here he is saying that he would put 100% tariffs on countries abandoning the US dollar as a world reserve currency. Let's check it out.
If a country tells me, sir, we like you very much, but we're going to no longer adhere to being in the reserve currency, we're not going to salute the dollar anymore, I'll say, that's okay. And you're going to pay a 100% tariff on everything you sell into the United States. And we love your product. I hope you sell a lot of it into the United States, but you're going to pay 100% tariff. He will then follow it up by saying, sir, it would be an honor to stay with the reserve currency. That will be like just playing. That's not even chess, that's checkers. But you don't have other, listen to this, you don't have other people that can talk that way.
So again, like that's quite strange to me, right? And the reason it's quite strange to me, and kind of connecting this with Micheal Saylor and his bit. Look, guys, the U.S. government gets a tremendous amount of raw power being able to issue its own money. So if you are the CEO of a publicly traded company, you can't come out and be against the dollar. You can't do that. You can't do that, right? Like, look at that. And again, this is someone who is pro Bitcoin, pro crypto, right? And look, and he's basically saying, like, look, if a country drops the dollar as a world reserve currency, I'm basically going to punish them with tariffs and taxes. So it just shows you how protective he is. And the question that I have for you guys is, like, is the dollar really benefiting you? Like, and again, like, this is like a very tough. I love America, and I know that Opti does too. I'm a first generation American. So is Opti, and I believe in the idea of America. But like Ron Paul said yesterday, you can love America and not be a dollar maxi. Like the Federal Reserve Frankenstein the dollar, right? Fiat money, those things don't equate, and don't let them manipulate you into thinking that you hate your country because you dislike fiat. Both things can be true, is what I'm trying to tell you. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to pass it on to Opti. I mean, Opti, it's troubling, right? It's troubling. Like, and then it kind of explains a little bit of where Saylor's coming from, right?
Yeah, 100%. And someone just hit me to this in the chat, so I'm going to pull it up before I give my thoughts on this. Saylor just tweeted about supporting self-custody, so let's read this for the audio listeners. This is Saylor on Twitter, literally a minute ago. I support self-custody for those willing and able, the right to self-custody for all, and freedom to choose the form of custody and custodian for individuals and institutions globally. Bitcoin benefits from all forms of investment by all types of entities and should welcome everyone, which I think is kind of what Nico and I were saying. So I'm glad we got a clarification on this, literally as the show. Maybe he's listening. Maybe. No, I'm trolling. Okay, first of all, I do want to kind of talk on the Bitcoin hasn't hit all-time high if you adjust for inflation. I think, again, without having that data, I think a lot of us kind of feel that same sentiment right now in regards to the Bitcoin price. I know we're all kind of bored right now, and we're like, man, we're literally the meme, like poking Bitcoin. Can you do something? This is boring. It's been such a long bear market. And I think when you look at the numbers, not only is the sentiment like that, of course, we just brought the numbers to you, but now we have the numbers to back it up, that if you adjust for inflation, Bitcoin hasn't hit an all-time high. And one thing I noticed yesterday is there's so many bullish indicators of where we are in Bitcoin, and yet no one is paying attention to Bitcoin right now, which I think is such a bullish development happening right now, that once Bitcoin does break out of this all-time high range, what was the number there, Nico? I think it's 73 is 77. So, okay. Now the new number, I've been kind of looking at once we actually break all-time high on the chart, which was around 71-ish, 73K, depending on how much shorting is going on up there. Now we have that range from 71 to 77K, that once we actually break out of that range, then we can all really kind of get excited and start to really claim that the bull run is here and the bears have no control over Bitcoin. So now we got some new numbers to kind of go check. So, hey, draw your lines at 77K now. I know it's kind of floating in midair if you're doing your TA charting, but now we have an idea of what the all-time high was when you adjust for inflation. So love to see it. The second part is that Trump clip. I have been referencing this clip for a minute, and I think this is the growing trend. Obviously, we've been talking. Yesterday, we played the clip of Paul Tudor Jones basically saying, I'm not going to hold bonds. I'm holding, hard money. I'm holding gold and Bitcoin and no fixed income investment. Maybe the NASDAQ. If I have some cash, it's going to be for short term, like bills or whatever. And I think that's the growing trend that we've noticed this year, is that what we've covered here on the show for a long time. The dollar has been weaponized, and people are looking for alternatives. The dollar has been used as a way to control people. And I think this is just kind of the laid out playbook for what happens when you have a world reserve currencies. Obviously, part of the Elizabeth Warren anti-crypto army attack was essentially the same thing. It's to keep people in the dollar. We know that the politicians and the bankers out there want to ensure that you don't find the escape route. Referencing Christine Lagarde's, we don't want people going to the exit route, because we all know that now with digital money, with everything on a digital ledger, bank runs can happen very quickly. And if you're looking at all the stuff going on in macro land, it seems, of course, I don't want to be a dollar doomer here, because I think they can kick the can down the road for a lot longer than we expect. But the TradFi system globally, not just in the US, but globally at large, is on a very, very precarious ledge right now. It's becoming very obvious that something might be happening, something might be brewing. Can the Fed control the markets? I just saw a tweet by the Kobayashi letter asking, or rather giving the question of, did the Fed break the markets right now because of that 50 basis rate cut? And now, things aren't going according to plan. And so obviously we're seeing a trend that people are looking to drop US debt. They're looking to drop US treasuries, and people are finding alternatives. And I did see a clip this morning go around Twitter about Putin basically saying the same thing, that the US dollar has been weaponized, and it wasn't them that wanted to get off the dollar. They were forced off the dollar, and hence why they're looking for alternatives. So this trend has been happening all year long. Again, I think there is a lot of tricks up the U.S. government, world reserve currency status sleeve to control people using the dollar. Obviously, a la what Trump was saying, we're seeing that they're doing very similar stuff in regards to Bitcoin, whether it's capital gains or regulations or choke point 2.0 of trying to control capital from flowing into Bitcoin. And like you were saying, I think this is kind of the trend we're seeing, even with Saylor coming out and saying the same thing. It's like, look, institutional capital is having a hard time finding its way into Bitcoin. And he just clarified that, yeah, I believe in self-custody, but I also believe that if Bitcoin is going to go where we think it's going to go, then there will need to be some good custodians out there. Hal Finney even said it, like a week after Bitcoin was released, that in the future, there will be Bitcoin banks. And I know a lot of Bitcoiners are like, oh, banks are going away and banks aren't ever going to happen. And, they're on a time limit. But I kind of disagree with that. I think there will always be banks. I think there will always be need for banks. But as we are clarifying, I think it's very important that we do kind of ensure that self-custody does happen and people are able to take self-custody. But the growing trend's the same. People are wanting to drop the US dollar because it has been weaponized, and people are tired of losing their purchasing power. And that's the game we're at right now. They have to continue to print money to ensure that the dollar looks strong to people and that they're incentivized to use the dollar. But now we have many options. You can go into your local currency if you want, but we obviously will argue that the best bet is to go into Bitcoin. And that's why we think Bitcoin is going to win. And that's why we think everyone should be holding some Bitcoin.
Amen to that. All right, everybody, let's get to the news. We have a lot to talk about today. Let's check it out. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. Help us break 100 likes within the first 45 minutes of the show. All you got to do is smash the like button. Of course, shout out to everybody watching us on Rumble, X, Nostr, your platform or protocol of choice. And also, shout out to Saylor for coming out and clarifying his stance on self-custody. Again, I love this is a free market, and love everything that Saylor has done for the movement. Personally, I'm a Saylor fan, but again, incentives are incentives, ladies and gentlemen. And what Jack Mahler said, this comes from a place of love. Anyways, everybody,
love speech.
Let's get to the news. We have lots to talk about today. Let's check it out. Here we go. Special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind for your piece of Bitcoin. All right, everybody. Opti is going to model the Passport by Foundation devices. It's incredibly easy to use. It's convenient and secure. It doesn't sacrifice security for convenience. This is the perfect gift to give to someone that perhaps is a little bit intimidated by self-custody. The Passport by Foundation devices makes self-custody easy for everyone. You can use promo code SIMPLY to get a discount on the Passport by Foundation's hardware wallet. You're going to need a hardware wallet if you want to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. This is the one we recommend. It does not come with Opti, though. Even though we were
debatable.
Someone did ask. Anyways, so this is what I want to talk about today. We kind of ended yesterday's show regarding this topic, And I just wanted to add a little bit to it. Bitcoin is what do we want as Bitcoiners? We want the separation of money and state, right? We believe that's going to make the world a better place. By definition, the separation of money and state is highly political. And what's going to happen, inevitably going to happen, is the Bitcoin industry and Bitcoiners are going to become part of the donor class in DC. And that's exactly what is happening. I just want to read the headline of this article. A wave of crypto-friendly lawmakers is about to crash Congress. Brace yourself for the crypto Congress. A $160 million political spending spree by cryptocurrency firms and executives is poised to usher in a new bipartisan army of industry-friendly lawmakers across the House and Senate. Who are they? As many as 13 new pro-crypto candidates could ascend to seats in the House next year with backing from the industry's network of super PACs, which have spent big to promote allies and block critics and races across the country. The potential House members range from progressive Democrats who tout digital assets as a tool for financial inclusion to Republicans who bash the Biden administration's crypto policy and say the technology can, quote, create an economic freedom. The Senate is expected to gain several pro-crypto members, including Representatives Adam Schiff and John Curtis, who are all but guaranteed to win races in their respective states. Republicans in nearly every key battleground state contest are crypto proponents, meaning that any seats the GOP flips will deliver a new ally. Regardless of who wins the presidency, the result of the 2024 election is likely to be the most pro-crypto Congress ever, and one that could deliver the industry's long-held lobbying priority of removing regulatory roadblocks. It's a stunning rise, with crypto products being used by only a fraction of the U.S. population. But executives' willingness to dump money into the political system from their companies' bank accounts and their own has helped make politicians pay outsized attention to their cause. That is not true. The last 3.5 years, the Biden administration has metaphorically attacked the industry with a 2x4, a 3x4. And that is what has caused this reaction by industry executives and people that are part of the industry to react to it. This was a response to the attack. This just didn't come out of nowhere. This came out because of Elizabeth Warren, because of the current administration. That's why Trump is mentioning he's going to protect the right to self-custody. That would have never have happened in a million years if there wasn't an incentive for that to happen in the first place. They created that incentives when they attacked the industry. And ladies and gentlemen, this is why we're going to win. This is a bottom-up movement that involves all political parties, and our movement has better incentives. So you're going to see the continuation of this. And what is the House of Representatives but not representing the interest of the American people? So I disagree with you, Politico. I've been paying attention to what has been happening the last 3.5 years, and we've been getting attacked, which is why you're seeing this immune system response of cyber hornets sticking up for the Bitcoin industry. It goes on to say, quote, when it comes to new players on the scene, there has not been something to just explode like this. To go from an industry that spent very little to being arguably the biggest spender of the election cycle, said John Leibowitz, vice president for communications at the Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, an ethics watchdog that tracks campaign finance issues. Here's a look at the crypto industry's likely class of 2025 and how much its super PAC has spent to support preferred candidates. Excuse me. So for the Democrats, they've spent $31.5 million. Crypto has flexed its influence in more than 4 dozen House races this year. The crypto super PAC Protects Progress has spent $2.6 million boosting figures who won a crowded Democratic primary in March and now hopes to represent a redrawn district around Montgomery, Alabama. All right. You guys get the general gist of this. And what I got to say about this is, yeah, good riddance. Isn't it nice to get a taste of your own medicine? Isn't it nice? Isn't it nice? We are now part of the donor class, baby. And we're in DC, and we want our industry protected. We want what we want. We want our our future secured. We don't want our future attacked, and that sucks that it contradicts certain policies of the current administration. They always talk about democracy. Booyakasha. Here's a taste of democracy for you, and it's coming in hot. And we got a lot of Bitcoiners that are backing this. Yeah, exactly. Someone it just reminds me of the meme from that movie of the Somalian pirates, Tom Hanks and whatever. It's like, we are the captain now. And this is going to continue. Our industry is just going to continue to get bigger. As it gets bigger, our lobbying effort will continue to get bigger. Our donor class will continue to get bigger. And at the end of the day, Washington, D.C. politics is controlled by the donor base. We are now part of the donor base, baby. And that's not going away. Like, welcome to democracy. Like, I don't know what else to tell you, So, and again, we didn't ask for this. I think that Bitcoiners and inherently anyone that's part of the Bitcoin and crypto industry inherently distrusts the political system because of how connected it is with the fiat money system. But I think that if you attack us for 3.5 years, if you try to kill our industry the way that Elizabeth Warren tried to kill our industry, this is the end result. Like, we fight back, we bite back. That, like, it's like, did you expect us to roll over and say, hey, you know what? You guys are right. We're just going to go away. Forget about it. This is what happens.
Yeah, well, Politico has been cooked for a while. They've been pretty anti-Bitcoin for a long time. And it's just interesting. I think in this article, they tried to kind of lay it out like they're unbiased. But if you really read it,
they spinned it. Like, for
yeah,
sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like they tried to come off as unbiased, but it's definitely biased. And essentially, if you read between the lines, they're saying like this is a bad thing. And we've heard this trend come out the last couple of weeks as well. I forget who it was last week or like 2 weeks ago, but basically saying that we have to watch the crypto donation super PACs because they are, messing with democracy or whatever. And what I forget what the actual quote was, but and who it was exactly. But they're freaking out about this because now Bitcoiners are playing the game. And I know a lot of Bitcoiners kind of take the opposite view of like, just like build a parallel system and no need for us to play the game because Bitcoin's going to win. And we talked about this yesterday. And I'm glad that this article dropped today, or actually after the show yesterday on Politico, because it's making our point for us. And really, when you look at the numbers, 160 million for super PAC, like, yeah, it's not like too much money in the grand scheme of things, obviously, but as one donation base, like that's a pretty big donation. Like that's a lot of spending going on for our industry, and you just love to see it. Though, again, being more of a Bitcoin maxi, I did read that article and kind of look at some of the wording from some of these politicians, and I haven't had enough time to like deep dive every single one of those politicians. But I did catch a trend of a lot of conversations about, blockchain and digital asset innovations. So until they just go hard on, we are here to protect Bitcoin, I will obviously be a little skeptical about what their incentives are and how educated they are. But I think this is a good first step. And obviously, this is our first basically Bitcoin election. And I think moving forward, Bitcoiners are going to get more involved. And Nico, when you were referencing the quote of I'm the captain now, I thought you were going to reference the Max Kaiser quote of, it was like 2017, where it's like, he who has the money makes the rules, and we have the best money, and now we can get involved in the political system and try to influence what's going on. And let's not forget that Howard Lutnick is on the board for the Trump transition team. Of course, Cantor Fitzgerald, yes, you can say that, there's some iffy stuff going on with Tether, but I think that is growing trend that Bitcoin and, for lack of a better terms, quote, the crypto industry is being taken legitimate. And now we are maturing, and hopefully soon we will get some favorable regulations in the US. Hopefully they're a little more hands off and they don't try to embark some weird taxes on us and, force us not to hold custody Bitcoin and all that stuff. Like, there's still a lot of work to be done, but I think this is a good first step on the road where we all know what's going to happen. Bitcoin is going to take over not only the financial sector, but the political sector. And hey, $160 million super PAC donations for being pro Bitcoin. Like, it's going towards the trend and the narrative that I've been, and Nico have been saying on the show for a long time, that if you fight Bitcoin, you're no longer going to be a politician. And I just love to see it. This is how America works. This is how democracy works, is those who lobby, they get their favoritism.
Yeah,
isn't
it crazy, right? We're using their system, right? We're playing by their rules, and this is how it comes. It's just interesting watching them seethe, and you feel the bias in that Politico article. They're not being sincere. They're not being honest. Bitcoin, without a shadow of a doubt, has been attacked for the last 3.5 years, and we've covered it in depth in this show on a Monday through Friday basis. So yeah, I mean, there you go. Like, did you expect us to roll over and go away? No, this is what happens. Like, you fight, and then you get a reaction back, and you get a taste of democracy. Anyways, everybody.
Hold on. It is funny though, Nico. You just reminded me. We were talking about it yesterday, but the meme of like rules for thee but not for me, it's like it's playing out again in this regard. They're like, sure, this is bad, they're spending way too much money to lobby our politicians, like we should fight this. And then when you really understand how politics works, like, hey, we're just playing the game. Like, this is the game.
It's like we're doing exactly what you did. You just don't like the fact that we figured it out. Anyways, everybody, let's get to the culture.
Signal.
All right, everybody, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, the Orange Pill app. Stack friends who stack sats. Join the 12,233 Bitcoiners that are currently on the app. Scan the QR code to get started. It's one of the best ways to reach me directly. Don't really answer Twitter DMs or emails these days. You want to send me a message, you want to ask me a question, download the Orange Pill app, send me a message there. It's a great app to connect with fellow Bitcoiners. So you're on the go, you're on the move, you don't know anyone around you, the Orange Pill app is for you. It has a really clever geographical feature. So when you pull up the app, you can scroll and you could literally see geographically the Bitcoiners that are near you, and it gives you the capability to send them a message directly, sparking up that conversation and hopefully starting up that relationship. So again, download the #1 Bitcoin social layer, download the Orange Pill app today, stack friends who stack sats. Anyways, so we are going to talk about self-custody today and the importance of taking self-custody. Opti, how are we going to get started?
It was fitting. We had to do it for today. I haven't done it in a while. And we are getting new viewers here. And considering that we are talking about self-custody all day, I figured I'd give you guys, just the elementary, the first steps on what you should be doing if you are only buying Bitcoin and you're leaving it on an exchange. And so I do, again, I do the little TLDR, the framework that I like to use if this is your first time taking your Bitcoin off an exchange so that you are secure. And then, of course, I got some hardware wallets and mobile wallets that I like and desktop wallets that I like. So first things first, guys, if this is your first Bitcoin wallet, first of all, you need to take your Bitcoin off an exchange. As we said on the show, not your keys, not your cheese. If it's on an exchange, you could argue it's not really your Bitcoin. Yes, you have claim to that Bitcoin, but until you take it off the exchange, it's not your Bitcoin. But once you do that, like, what are the first steps? Like, what are the steps for you guys that are new, that haven't done this before? How should you set up your Bitcoin wallets? So first of all, you guys could throw tomatoes. Usually the best move forward for most people is just downloading a mobile wallet on your phone. There's a progression here. But first things first, download a mobile wallet. I'm going to give you some of my favorites that are endorsed by me. And then this is the process. First, you're going to create a seed phrase. Your phone will do it for you. Of course, we've come on the show multiple times and explained to to you different ways that you can create a seed phrase. Then, of course, you got to write your seed phrase down. Of course, double check that it's correct. Make sure you're writing clearly. Of course, there's next steps after that. But first things first, just write down your seed phrase, double check it, make sure it's clear and legible so that you can gain access back into your Bitcoin wallet. The second thing is don't send all of your Bitcoin from the exchange all at once yet. I would do a test transaction, a small transaction. That could be whatever it means to you, you know, $5, $10, whatever that means to you. Just make that decision for yourself. But you want to do a small test transaction to that new formed Bitcoin wallet. Now, once the transaction confirmed, you know, you can feel that feeling that I first felt when I did my Bitcoin transaction where you're like, wait, what did I do? Did I mess it up? And then you see it confirm. And once you see your Bitcoin confirm into your new wallet, I always say you should wipe that Bitcoin wallet. I know, scary. Oh my God, you're wiping your Bitcoin wallet. What if I can't get in? This is why we tell you to do a small Bitcoin transaction in the first place. So if you lose a couple of dollars, it's like whatever. But if you do this correctly, you're going to be fine. So once you wipe that wallet, again, clear the seed phrase, basically restart the wallet, re-enter your Bitcoin seed phrase from the piece of paper that you got, and voila, your Bitcoin should be there if it's done correctly. And once you do that, now you have the peace of mind knowing that you can get access back into your Bitcoin. And then you can send the rest of your Bitcoin. Of course, you can complicate this. You can add passphrases on it, et cetera, and move towards hardware wallets eventually. But for most people, to start off, what you want to do, just send a little Bitcoin to a new wallet. Make sure you can get back into that wallet with your seed phrase or get access to those signing devices. And then you know for sure that if you send all of your Bitcoin to it, you're not going to wreck yourself. Okay, that's the basic TLDR. Screenshot this scene right here and, you know, follow that process. It shouldn't take long, but I think that's kind of like an initiation, right, that most people should do. Once you become more experienced, you're probably like okay with it and you may not do these steps again, but for you beginners here, for people just taking their Bitcoin off an exchange, that's what you should be doing. Okay, next thing is the question that everyone always asks. What about this Bitcoin wallet? Is this wallet good? What about this hardware wallet? Again, I am not the authority figure here on Bitcoin wallets and, you know, what are the best. You may think differently, but these are the wallets that I co-signed. These are the ones that I use and have used, and they have very good reputations amongst the Bitcoin community. Again, there is a factor of trust when it comes to the Bitcoin wallets. That's why a lot of Bitcoiners say that you should use open source wallets, et cetera, et cetera. But if that's over your head, this is the list that I've compiled, that I constantly compile. And I do update this when new wallets come out. There is one on here that I haven't got my hands on yet, but heard a lot of good things of, and I'll point that out particularly. But again, usually you start with a mobile wallet. So first things first, look, my favorite at this point is just because I've been using it for so long and I'm such a Luddite and I don't like to change things, is a Blue Wallet. I've been using it for years. It's my go-to. It's my utility. It's my day-to-day wallet on my phone. It's Blue Wallet. But with that said, I also really like Envoy Wallet from our sponsor, Foundation. And then there's another great one, you know, Green Wallet from Blockstream, or Nunchuck. If you want to kind of get a little more serious about your custody and do multi-sig, you should use Nunchuck. And then there's some Lightning wallets. Again, if I have to differentiate between on-chain and Lightning, maybe that's for another conversation. But for the sake of keeping this short, you know, Lightning is so you can send Bitcoin quicker. Technically, it's considered off-chain. My favorite is, shouts out to the team over at Zeus. Zeus, they're the goats. They're, you know, keeping their Lightning wallet open source. You can run a node on your computer. They're staying in America. Love them. Always push Zeus. Shouts out to our boys over at Zeus. And then Aqua Wallet. You know, Aqua from Jan 3, I believe. You know, Samson Mao. They're doing really cool stuff. Considering that Wallet of Satoshi left the US, they've kind of filled that void of just quick, easy to use Bitcoin Lightning wallet. They are using Tether as a part of their Lightning swap. So if that's something you're concerned with, then there's other options. BitKit is one of the new recent wallets. Shouts out to John Carvalho for, you know, his work over at Synonym. They're killing it. I love BitKit. And then, of course, if you're not in the US, Wallet of Satoshi, yes, it's custodial. And again, a whole other conversation, a whole other can of worms here, but it just works. And, you know, for small transactions, I think it's good enough for most people's needs here. But next is desktop. That means, you know, downloading a wallet on your laptop or your computer and using a desktop wallet. Of course, Nico and I are kind of, well, I've slowly but surely became more of Electrum Maxi because it's on my Start 9 and I just love it. Electrum, it's tried and true. It's one of the OG desktop wallets. It's, you know, it's very, very stable. The new ones on the block, Sparrow. I really like Sparrow because of all the advanced features you can use on it. Sparrow just worked. It's great. Highly recommend Sparrow. And then Spectre, similar to Sparrow, newer kid on the block, but a great desktop wallet. Now here where it gets to the fun part, of course, the hardware wallet. And this is, you know, there's some others maybe, and, you know, you guys can tell and yell at me which ones you like the most. But of course, our sponsor, for you new guys, I think Passport by Foundation is like the GOAT just because of easy use. It is open source. Cold storage, your seed phrase never hits the internet. The OG one for a lot of the Bitcoiners out there is a cold card. I have two of them here, you know, the Q and the MK series. Those are great. And then this next one, BitKey. I haven't personally used this one yet, guys, but I've been hearing a lot of good things from BitKey, and I think I'm going to purchase one for myself this Christmas so that I can, you know, test it out and see what's good with it. Shouts out to Adam from Bitcoin Well. He keeps telling me, like, dude, the BitKey, it's so simple. It works. I love it. It's my day-to-day. And then, you know, there is a lot of contention in regards to the last one, Seed Signer, but DIY, I love it. It's really good if you want to, you know, share a hardware wallet, hardware signing device for your friends and your family and Uncle Jim them. It's a really fun project to build a seed signer. It, you know, it makes you feel kind of cool and technical and all that stuff. So again, these are the ones that I endorse. These are the wallets that I use. For most people out there, like, if I know last time I did this, I believe it was Elaine who was like yelling at me. She's like, well, just tell me which ones to use. Again, I recommend that you use them all. Maybe there's some trade-offs that you like on some.
Passport. It's great. Yeah, you should get a Passport.
I was going to say that. So like I said, I've been using Blue Wallet on my phone for a long time, but the Envoy app is really, really great. And I'm not just saying that because they pay us. I'm saying that because it's just ease of use. It's great. So to simplify it, you know, for you new people here, and of course, we're paid by Passport, but download the Envoy app, get yourself a Passport. And if you're newer, ease of use, you don't want to complicate things, that's more than good enough for you guys out there. And it's going to be secure. You know, you don't have to trust us. You can look at the code. You can do your own research.
It's open source. It's
exactly.
easy to use. It has a secure element. It's completely air gapped. It's incredibly easy to use. I recommend the Passport. The Passport has all the convenience of someone that is just getting into self-custody, and perhaps they feel a little bit intimidated by the complexities of the other hardware wallets, but it also gives you all the security benefits of someone who you know, is a cold storage a maxi and an OG Bitcoiner, right? So I would recommend the Passport. Of course, you know, they are a partner of Simply Bitcoin, but we do not partner with products or Bitcoin companies that we don't use personally. So highly recommend the Passport. Definitely check it out. You can use promo code Simply, and it will definitely give you a discount. But yes, take self-custody of your Bitcoin. You can connect it with the Envoy app. So you download the Envoy app for your Android or your iOS, the Apple device, and you can even connect the app to your personal node. So you don't even have to use their node, right? So it's really, really built with Bitcoiners in mind. So definitely go check out Passport by Foundation Devices. The link's in the video description. Not your keys, not your cheese. Guys, this was...
Wait. Last thing, Nico. I do have one last PSA here. Just to know for you guys out there, it doesn't just stop with that, guys. There is some next steps here for most people that I highly recommend. Of course, run a node. Don't just trust the companies that you're hooking up your Bitcoin wallets to. Make sure you are verifying your own transactions. This is how we ensure the Bitcoin network stays true to what Bitcoin is. Of course, continue to save in Bitcoin. And then as you start to build your Bitcoin stack, when the mempools start to clear out, consolidate your UTXOs. I've done episodes on that before in the past. And then, of course, like I said, back up your seed phrase. Of course, we do have the sponsor Stamp Seed out here. Make sure you're putting it on something that won't just get destroyed if some kind of catastrophe or emergency happens, and you don't want to leave your seed phrase on a piece of paper. So there's extra steps to this, guys. It is a journey. You don't have to do this all at once. Of course, you got to look at your Bitcoin today. Think of it like it's 10x the price it is today. And with that in mind, how do you want to secure your Bitcoin? If you just want to put it on a Bitcoin wallet, by all means do, or a mobile Bitcoin wallet, by all means do that. But you should think of the wealth you have in Bitcoin going up by 10x. And then that's how you should consider how, complicated and secure that you want that Bitcoin in cold storage, backed up, all that stuff. But you should think of it like, say if you have $1,000 in Bitcoin right now, does that change in your mind if it was $10,000? Say you have 10,000, does that change how your security view on your Bitcoin is if it's $100,000? These are the things you should be talking about and thinking about right now. But first, make sure you get your Bitcoin off an exchange. Self-custody is the revolution, and we'll do our best to kind of guide your hand throughout the process. But you need to take your Bitcoin off the exchanges.
Not your keys, not your cheese. All right, everybody, if you guys enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button, consider subscribing, and of course, share this episode. Opti will be taking over for me tomorrow and Friday while I'm in Lugano for the Plan B Forum, and then I'll be back in Miami next week. Guys, love you all. If you guys enjoyed the show, smash the like button, consider subscribing. This was Simply Bitcoin Live for October 23rd, 2024. I'm your host, Nico. This is my co-host, Optimus Fields. And we'll be back tomorrow for a brand new episode. Peace out, everybody.
By BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.